Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into something that's really changing the game for companies, how they think about talent, about innovation, their whole structure, actually. And we're not just talking buzzwords here. This is about, actual business results from embracing neurodiversity. We're pulling from a really great MIT Sloan Management Review article.
That's right. Our focus really is how neuroinclusion builds real tangible organizational capabilities. We're talking concrete improvements, hiring, innovation, culture. It's not just, a nice to have.
Exactly. And our mission for you listening is to, pull out the key stuff from this research, give you a shortcut to understanding why this neuroinclusion thing is becoming, frankly, a business must-have.
Yeah.
And why it matters for your grasp of what makes organizations tick. So let's unpack it.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Neurodiversity. What is it? Well, fundamentally, it's just about the natural variations in how human brains work. Different ways of thinking, basically.
And it's not some tiny fringe group, right? The scale is much bigger than people often think.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking nearly 1 in 5 people globally is neurodistinct. That covers things like, autism, dyslexia, ADHD, attention deficits.
Well,
And the really crucial shift here, the big idea, is moving away from seeing these as disorders. That word implies something's wrong, something needs fixing.
right.
Instead, it's about recognizing these are unique skills, different talents that companies actually really need. These individuals often thrive because of their neurological differences, not despite them.
That's a huge reframe. So it's less about accommodation and more about unlocking unique capabilities.
Precisely. It sets the stage for how harnessing these different ways of thinking can yield some, pretty unexpected benefits for organizations.
Okay, so where did this start in the corporate world? Who are the pioneers?
Well, the journey kind of kicks off in earnest around 2013. SAP launched their Autism at Work program. That was pretty groundbreaking. Microsoft and EY followed pretty quickly after that. And the folks who started these programs, Jose, Neil, Hiron, they saw right away it was way more than just filling jobs. They realized they were actually building core organizational strengths.
Interesting. And I heard a social enterprise specialist played a big role.
A huge role, yeah. Thorkild's son founded Specialistern back in 2004. He developed this model specifically for placing autistic people, who often got shut out of the workforce, into jobs that really used their skills.
Okay.
And their impact has been massive. Globally, they've been involved, directly or indirectly, in over 20,000 job placements. They've trained thousands of employment professionals, worked with hundreds of companies. I mean, the reach is incredible. 25 countries.
Wow, a serious scale.
Yeah.
So what was their secret sauce? What did they do differently, especially with assessing talent that got these big companies interested?
It was their assessment methods. They used alternative approaches, less reliant on the traditional interview, which, can be a real barrier for neurodistinct people whose brains just process social interaction differently. Instead, Specialistern focused on what candidates could do, like practical tryouts, project work. It removed barriers that had nothing to do with their actual ability to do the job. And that really influenced SAP, Microsoft, EY as they built their own programs.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got the background, the what and the who. But let's get to the core question for listeners. What's the payoff? What are the real tangible wins for a business?
Right, the why bother question. The first big win, and maybe the most surprising for some, is finding these incredibly effective employees, often with amazing skills, who were just completely overlooked before.
Overlook how?
Well, the article mentions SAP's first group back in 2014. Many were top graduates, some even held patents, but they couldn't land jobs because, they didn't interview in the expected way. But once they were hired, the retention rates were fantastic. We're talking 90% plus at places like EY, Microsoft, SAP, really high.
And not just sticking around, but actually contributing in big ways.
Oh, absolutely. Major contributions, innovations, patents, awards, significant cost savings. Think about it. Neurodistinct hires at Microsoft wrote code that millions of people use every day on Windows and Xbox.
Wow.
And it's not just that they can do the work, it's often how they do it. Maybe it's intense focus or a different kind of logic that leads to really elegant, robust solutions. It's a distinct quality.
Right.
And there's science behind this too, Research links autism with strengths in pattern recognition, memory, dyslexia with visual and creative skills. ADHD often correlates with entrepreneurial drive. So by providing the right support, companies are tapping into these really valuable strengths.
Okay, so a pool of often untapped, highly skilled talent.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And if you have diverse thinking internally, presumably that helps you understand your diverse customers better too. What about user insight?
Exactly. That's a big motivator. Building workforces that actually mirror your customer base. Jenny LeFleury at Microsoft put it well. Having people with disabilities ensures products work across the spectrum of being human. A great example is the blur background feature in Microsoft Teams. That idea came from a deaf engineer. Her visual sense was heightened, so background clutter was really distracting for her. And boom, a feature millions now use.
That's a perfect example. A specific need leading to a universal benefit. It really shows how differences in sensory processing can spark great ideas for interfaces, usability.
Totally, especially around interfaces and usability. These different perspectives are gold dust.
And what about pure innovation, breaking out of old ruts?
Well, innovation often stalls because organizations get stuck in their ways, right? Same old thinking, bring in people who genuinely think differently, and you naturally disrupt those patterns.
Makes sense.
There's a fantastic SAP story in the article. An autistic employee hired through their program won the company's big innovation award, the Hasso-Plattner Founders Award. First time an individual, not a team, won it.
What do?
They totally redesigned a complex financial accounting process, took something that used to take days and cut it down to 20 minutes, just rethought it completely.
Days to 20 minutes. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Is there a theory behind why this happens? Why breakthroughs come from sort of the edges?
Yeah, there is. Innovation theory calls it marginality. The idea is that sometimes the best solutions to really tough problems don't come from the experts steeped in the conventional wisdom.
The insiders.
Exactly. They come from someone more on the periphery, someone with a different background, different training, different way of thinking. They see it fresh. Neurodistinct individuals often bring exactly that marginal perspective, almost by definition.
So seeing problems others might overlook, or maybe seeing problems everyone knows are there, but nobody talks about. That leads to the next point, doesn't it? Better visibility into problems and maybe more motivation to fix them.
It's interesting how traits sometimes seen as, well, challenging can actually drive improvements. For some neurodistinct people, there's a strong need for order, for logic. Illogical processes can actually cause them real stress. The article gives an example of a guy in a manufacturing warehouse. Old company, processes were a mess, totally illogical, it stressed him out. But that stress became the drive to fix things, leading to significant cumulative improvements. His need for order improved the whole system.
And what about communication? That sort of directness or bluntness sometimes associated with neurodiversity.
Yeah, that perceived lack of sensitivity to social cues can mean people are just more direct. But it also often means they're willing to flag problems that others might politely ignore, to avoid rocking the boat.
Like the emperor has no clothes situation.
Exactly. The EY example is striking. Their very first neurodiversity cohort, they went through the standard new hire training and basically said, this is terrible. They pointed out major flaws and ended up rewriting the materials.
And the result?
Saved the company over $1 million a year. The managers figured previous hires, maybe more worried about fitting in, probably noticed the issues but just didn't speak up. A bit more candor saved a fortune.
$1 million? Just from listening.
Wow. Okay, and it sounds like making these adjustments, learning to manage diverse thinkers, actually makes managers better overall.
That's a consistent finding. Managers who supervise neurodistinct employees often say it just made them better managers, period.
How so?
It forces them to be clearer in their communication, more explicit about expectations, more flexible. Basic good management practice, but maybe sharpened. It pushes them to ask that key question for everyone. What does this specific person need to bring out their best work?
Right. Good management is good management.
Exactly. The skills that help you manage neurodistinct employees well, they're just the skills of a great supervisor for anybody. It lifts the game for everyone.
And this leads to feeling safer at work, right? Psychological safety.
Yeah, that's a really important side effect. Companies with these programs often see a big jump in existing employees, people hired the traditional way, coming forward and self-identifying as neurodistinct.
Why does that happen? It suggests the environment feels safer. Historically, many neurodistinct people felt they had to mask their traits to fit in, to avoid negative consequences. That takes a huge amount of energy, it's stressful, and it hurts well-being and performance.
So creating a more inclusive environment allows people to drop the mask.
Right. And when that happens, when psychological safety goes up, you see benefits across the board. Better emotional well-being, sure, but also people feel safer to learn, to take risks, to speak up, which boosts performance for the whole organization.
Okay, last big benefit area, Values. How does this tie into company values, employee engagement, attracting talent?
There's good evidence here, too. Both SAP and EY found employee engagement went up, even for people just working near these programs, not directly involved.
Really? Why?
It's not totally clear, but the guess is that people feel good when their company is seen as doing good, or when it signals that differences are genuinely accepted. It resonates.
Makes sense.
And it definitely helps with recruitment. Top talent increasingly wants to work for companies that, as Microsoft says, reflect humanity, or like EY, are building a better working world. It signals something positive about the company's core values, and that attracts partners and customers too, for the same reasons.
That's a powerful ripple effect. Okay, so we see the benefits.
Yeah.
What's the bigger picture now? How much progress has been made? What are the hurdles? And crucially, what can leaders listening right now actually do?
Well, the momentum is definitely building. There's something called the Neurodiversity at Work Roundtable. It started maybe 7 years ago with just 6 companies, big names like EY, Ford, Microsoft, SAP.
Okay.
Today, it's got 60 members, huge corporations like Deloitte, IBM, Goldman Sachs, Dell, Walgreens, even government agencies are involved.
So it's really taking off. What kind of impact are they having?
Well, just those roundtable companies, through their specific hiring programs, have brought in over 3,000 neurodistinct job seekers. Specialist Stern, remember them. They've worked with over 500 employers. And those early pioneers, SAP, Microsoft, EY, they've helped thousands more organizations learn from what they're doing.
That sounds like huge progress.
Yeah.
So what's the main challenge then, if it's working so well?
The biggest hurdle now is moving beyond these special programs. Often they start as what the article calls lighthouse initiatives, kind of separate tracks.
Right, pilots or isolated projects.
Exactly, which is fine for experimenting, learning the ropes, but it can stop the practices from spreading across the whole organization. The real win, the ultimate goal, is when you don't need a dedicated neurodiversity hiring program anymore.
Because it's just how things are done everywhere.
Precisely. When neuro-inclusive practices are just baked into the everyday operations, the standard way of doing business, that's the goal, mainstreaming it.
Okay, got it. So for leaders listening, wanting to move in this direction, what's the practical advice? How can you start applying this?
First step, just learn more. Educate yourself about neurodiversity. Honestly, knowledge makes it way less scary or mysterious. And remember the stat. Roughly 20% of any group, your team, your clients, your customers, is likely neurodistinct. So understanding this is just smart.
And a big warning, avoid stereotypes.
Absolutely critical. The saying goes, if you've met one neurodistinct person, you've met one neurodistinct person. Everyone is unique. Conditions manifest differently. Don't make assumptions based on one experience.
You don't have to figure it all out alone, right?
Not at all. Seek advice. There's so much knowledge out there now. Things like the Neurodiversity at Work playbook, connect with experienced partners like Specialist Stern or EY. They're often willing to share what they've learned. Use those resources.
And maybe don't try to boil the ocean right away.
Definitely. Start small. You can begin right with your own team. Create your own little lighthouse. You likely already have neurodistinct people on your team, whether they've disclosed or not.
So what does starting small look like?
It could be making small tweaks to make the environment safer, more accommodating. Things you don't even need to announce. Just subtle shifts in communication, meeting structures, providing information in different formats. Things that often benefit everyone, actually.
This also means looking hard at company culture, doesn't it? Especially that idea of culture fit.
Yes. Really challenge that whole notion of fit. Are you screening out valuable talent because they don't match some superficial behavioral norm? EY's revised question is so much better. Is this person additive to our culture?
Additive, not just fitting in. I like that.
It shifts the focus to what new perspectives and skills they bring, much more productive.
And getting buy-in from the top, still important.
Crucial. And the way to get it is to frame neuroinclusion around its business value. Show the competitive advantages, the ROI we talked about. It's not just CSR, it's a strategic move.
And then look at the nuts and bolts, your actual processes.
Yep. Review everything. How do you assess talent? Design jobs, run training, hold meetings, even company social events. Do these standard practices work for everyone? Microsoft uses team agreements to define how teams work together that helps create clarity for all.
Makes sense. And building this into how you train managers seems key for making it stick.
Absolutely. Weave neurodiversity management into leadership development. Make inclusive management the standard, not the exception. And always think about how learnings from pilot programs can be integrated back into the mainstream.
Finally, thinking beyond your own four walls.
Yeah, support neuroinclusion more broadly. In volunteer work, in schools, in public conversations. Position your organization as a champion. It reinforces your values and, frankly, makes you more attractive to future talent and partners. It shows you're serious about building a better working world.
Okay, so we've covered a huge amount. If you had to boil it down, what's the single biggest takeaway from this deep dive?
I think the main thing is this. Once you see neuroinclusion as a way to build organizational capability, you realize it's so much more than just, a feel-good thing or filling a few jobs. It's like an effectiveness multiplier for the whole business.
A magnifier.
Exactly. Upgrading skills, getting new user insights, boosting innovation, improving management, learning faster because people feel safer, aligning your values. These aren't side benefits. These are core competitive advantages today.
So this isn't just a passing trend. It's becoming essential.
Absolutely. And honestly, we're probably only just at the NDE 2.0 starting line, as the article puts it. There's still a lot more to figure out about scaling these benefits widely, but we know so much more now than we did 10 years ago. There is a learning curve here, and the benefits are clear. So the final thought for listeners is really, don't get left behind on this one.